I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Can I hit you with my chair? All right, good evening, everyone. How about just a quick roundtable again? I know we did some quick introductions. We mostly know each other, but we'll start with Michelle and go around the room.
Michelle Welling, Town Manager for Fairfield.
Robin Sear, Benton.
Kevin Kitchen.
Stephanie Thibodeau.
Tim Martin.
Robin Dennis.
Peter Lawrence.
Sean Dixon.
Matt Townsend, Fairfield.
Brock Frederick Benton.
Travis Leary, Fire Chief, Fairfield, Benton.
Okay, thank you. We'll get right into discussing the interlocal agreement and the 26-27 fire EMS budget. Michelle and Travis been working on the budget. Let's start with the current interlocal agreement. So at last meeting when we met, the main concern from Fairfield's standpoint was in the original agreement in 2014, there was a clause that said neither town would incur an increase of more than 5% in any 1 year. In the last few years, Fairfield has just been billing Benton a flat 5%, and our costs have inflated significantly due to staffing and contract agreements, insurance, whatnot. 5% is long gone. So we had discussed as a group that we would talk about billing each town by the proportion of the 3 or 5 year average of calls for each town. And that's kind of where we had left off. Do we have any more thoughts on that part of our agreement?
Yeah, we had talked about using a 5-year average.
Yep.
Not
Not the 3, yep. Anybody from Benton?
Well, it's got to be something, right? So it's got to be, you got to come up with a different metric that if you pick a percentage, it's really not going to make any sense, right? So
Yeah.
I think 5-year average or even a 3-year average would at least say those times where there might be something unusual, like the pandemic going on, right? Although the pandemic would have driven up calls.
Right.
Then, you know, it should be a reasonable approach to it.
Yeah. Any other suggestions? I mean, in the past, Fairfield has administered the program. Basically, Benton's got a bill. The chief has had contact with both towns. We've never had the opportunity to sit down as a group like this. Personally, I like this. I want Benton's involvement. I want them to have a seat at the table and a voice. It's just as a counselor for the taxpayers of Fairfield, we've gotten to a balance in the fire department where it's no longer equitable. We're carrying the bulk of the cost just due to changes in contracts, inflation, things like that haven't kept up. Not worried about past agreements, just moving forward what is fair for both towns. I personally believe that, you know, the interlocal agreement is the best for both towns. It shares services. Love to see it done more in as many ways as possible. It keeps the cost down for both towns, provides the best service for our taxpayers. So I think if we can agree to drop that 5% clause, we didn't follow it as far as Fairfield goes, because Fairfield wasn't supposed to incur more than a 5% increase either. It was just language that we just were made aware of, and wanted to bring it to Benton's attention and strike that moving forward into a new interlocal agreement. So if you guys are good with a 5-year or 3-year average.
Well, we need to decide which one, because it does make a difference.
It
does.
If it's 3 or 5.
Yeah, so,
Robin?
I would say 5. I mean, is that what you were thinking?
Yeah, I was thinking
Yeah.
5 as
Yeah.
well. Kevin?
I'm good with either way. I don't see the data being that much different between 3 or 5, so I'm good either way.
And, you know, unless the population changes drastically or the call volume changes, and if we have that contact with Travis, he can let us know, you know, as we get talking about new agreement looking forward, being able to have this meeting at least once a year as a combined unit, we could possibly look at that if it does get out of whack in the future, that, you know, call volume changed, populations decreased, increased. It'll give us the ability to amend that from 5-year, if 3-year makes sense. I don't want to see either town, you know, getting whacked. Michelle?
So I had included the language for 5-year because, one, it creates a bigger, it makes it more stable
Yeah.
than if you use a 3.
Yeah.
Right, because there was a year in which Benton's call volume in '21 was, you know, 390 calls. That was more calls than they had incurred in any of the previous years prior. So that would have been a huge jump. But being averaged with 4 other years, you don't realize the impact of that. And so it helps create some stability. The other piece we did, especially before, it was vague. It said per year, and calendar year was always used. Benton was on a calendar year town at that time. This has been changed so that it's fiscal year completed, which means we will know in July what your rate's going to be for the next fiscal year. We will already know that a year in advance before that takes place. So that gives everybody plenty of notice to know what we're working on with that budget. Because that way we're not dealing with, well, we've had a very busy fall, but then winter and spring falls off. So the year we're in has no impact on the next year's budget. It's just the prior 5. It just makes it a little bit more stable for everybody.
So we all in agreement to start with a 5-year average?
I am.
Bob's good.
Sean is, Robin,
Yeah.
It smooths it out.
Brock,
Yes.
looks like we're all in agreement.
Okay.
Yippee.
What will actually happen, what will need to happen, each municipality, when the wording is finalized, I'm more than happy to take care of that for everybody, the agreements will come to you. Each municipality will have to independently adopt the agreement, but that's how we'll go about it.
Right. So we are making other minor changes within the contract just on changing wordage.
It was just, yeah, they were grammatical pieces that, you know, new Microsoft Word picked up on, and a change in the date.
Yeah, and
I had requested whether or not, under notices, section 8.3, we wanted to add a provision for electronic delivery to be included, so we do so much via email now, and that was not included in there, and we just didn't get a clear answer on that either, but I thought everybody was okay with that.
Yes. Yeah.
So we'll add that
Yeah.
too.
And we've also added something on, it's 5.3 on disposition.
Yes, because I just needed to clear, so that works perfectly well within our parameters for Fairfield. I just wasn't sure if that fit within the parameters for Benton.
Did you say 5-3?
Yeah, 5.3 disposition.
So as that words, the fire chief may dispose of any unused or unneeded property and equipment, except the property valued at $1,000 or more, shall be put to public bid, and property valued at $5,000 or more shall be put to bid after 30 days' notice is given to the municipal offices of both parties. Proceeds from the sale may be used to offset replacement costs, otherwise proceeds shall be deposited into the reserve account.
And that is our current practice. I just wanted to make sure everybody was fine with those dollar thresholds for the town of Benton as well. We use an auction company most of the time. We used to have a tendency to get a much better value for our used equipment. They handle the sale, they collect the fees, they handle distribution. Works out really, really well. And the funds of that do ultimately go back into the reserve account already.
Is the reserve account for the fire department in particular, or is that?
Specifically, yes.
Okay.
So each department has their own here in town, and when they sell equipment like that, that's exactly what that does. It goes in to offset those costs.
And this evening, Robin handed out language considerations. Do we want to talk about those
Yeah, I
tonight?
was just looking to just you could stick with yours and then we could go back to this. What I tried to do, based on our conversation last time about, and, you know, having a meeting together and some of the other things that I was thinking about as we were reading through, you know, having a larger share of the budget, right? We want more of a voice, obviously, right? So I tried to consider that as well. Understanding some of the nuances for unions and things like that that we don't normally have.
Right.
I have expertise from the state of Maine, but not from municipal, right? Because we don't have a union in Benton. So I understand that that would be something that we would have to work through. But I think it would make everybody feel a lot more comfortable with the transition, right? Because the cost may
I
get
think
some.
it's fair for
Yeah.
the residents of Benton as
Yeah,
well.
yeah.
Yeah, I especially like the idea of the joint oversight committee and to work with the chief. So, and I don't think any of this is unreasonable at all.
And these are just, you guys can mark it up, do whatever. We can talk about it tonight.
I think it's a we thing.
Yeah,
Yeah.
right. So I do think that it's really just meant, I find sometimes it's easier to write things down and talk about it from a piece of paper than to try to throw it on a board, you know, and everybody's throwing ideas. Sometimes it's
Right.
hard to get that stuff together, or sometimes it's hard to get the thought process together, so.
So is this your recommendation to add to section 4.1, starting at the top?
Something like that, right? Now, whether or not, I mean, the chief has to be comfortable with it too, right? So we have to talk through the mechanics of it.
Do you have a copy of that?
Oh, I'm sorry. Yes, sir.
Can we read that?
I'm like, I've already written notes all
I didn't
over.
get a copy either.
Yeah.
You don't have a copy?
I don't have a copy, no.
Oh, I thought I got to everybody.
So, under current interlocal agreement, Fairfield administers fire department.
Yep.
Okay, and the reason we're here is we want a better cohesive unit with Benton. If we're gonna go by percentage of calls as far as cost goes, I want this annual meeting with our cohorts from Benton, so that we have that equal say. As far as representation, when it goes to voting, much like the school board is based on the percentage that you pay or the percentage of residents that you have. So I don't know, you know, if we get into a situation where we're in a tie-breaking situation and Benton's paying 22% of the costs, I don't know if the 50% seat at the table is going to be fair, you know, but I don't want to get in a situation where we're not considering everybody's wants and needs.
Well, I don't think I even tried, maybe I did, tried to address how many seats came from which, but I would say, right, that we've got to come up with a formula, just like.
Absolutely.
Right?
Yep.
And so,
Yep. I like all the ideas that are here. I'm just like,
Yep.
again, trying to weigh what's in the best interest of both towns. Obviously, Chief Leary's going to be the one overseeing most of this, so I'd like his input on those as well. I apologize.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I mean, I don't mind going to both communities and submitting budgets and especially sharing ideas of what we're looking to do in the future and all that type of stuff. So, yeah, absolutely.
I think you might get better.
Yeah,
right?
absolutely, yeah,
Just
yeah.
And understanding, right? It's really, why do you need X or Y,
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
So let me ask this question then, to be devil's advocate. I understand that, but again, from the Fairfield perspective, with that input on the budget, and I go back and I look at withdrawal, Benton signs of withdrawal, they give us a 30-day notice, yet they have key input on what our budget is. So that, we'd have to figure that out somehow.
A 3-day notice, I'm sorry.
With a 30-day notice under the withdrawal, the way I read
Oh, in the termination language?
Right, in the termination.
Yep.
If you guys decide you want to go with China and Winslow or Clinton or whatever the case may be, you give us a 30-day notice, yet we just amended our budget to meet Benton's needs, which doesn't reflect necessarily what would be the best for the town of Fairfield by itself. Does that make sense, what I'm trying to say?
Yeah, understood. This type of agreement where you're really in business together, right? You're making an investment in the upcoming budget year, right? It really should be 30 days or 90 days or whatever it is we need for the next fiscal year, right? If we were going to do termination.
Prior to the fiscal year.
Yes, right, or prior to the renewal of the contract. You
Yeah.
see quite a bit when
Right.
I do contracts for software licensing, right? So if it's a 5-year agreement, then it's, 6 to 3 months prior to the term end and the renewal period begins. I think that's more reasonable. You kind of have to flip it the other way when you're talking about it. It's not reasonable for anybody, even for us, if
Yeah.
you guys decided, hey, we want to do this ourselves,
Yeah.
right? And give us 30-day notice. It would be
Works both
reasonable.
ways.
Right, it works both ways.
Yeah.
Yep.
So I think we just need to figure out how to.
No, I think it makes sense. Michelle?
Well, in the contract withdrawal language, I mean, the agreement withdrawal language doesn't allow them to pull out in the middle of a fiscal year anyway.
Yeah, and I was-
It's currently worded that any party by appropriate action of its legislative body may withdraw from this agreement. The withdrawing party, upon approval of its legislative body, shall give written notice of its intent to the municipal officers of the other party on or prior to June 30th of any calendar year, with the effective date of such withdrawal to be July 1st of the following calendar year. Such party shall continue to make any payments due during the notice period. So you almost have to give us a year's notice prior to withdrawing from the agreement.
Okay, I
So
read
we
that
would
as-
know.
I read that as July 1st. If
Right, they would
Benton-
let us know in June and it'd be done in July.
July 1st, we would be on our
No,
own.
it's a year later.
Okay.
So they have to, it has to be a year's notice. Just so exactly that scenario, it's 9.5.
Okay.
Just exact, so that scenario you just explained, Kevin, can't happen.
And it has to be reasonable. If it's not reasonable, both parties are going to have a problem.
I think the way it's written now is reasonable for both parties. I mean, we've been doing this for 14 years without ever talking about this. So this is why this is great for both of us.
Yeah, I just misinterpreted July 1st as,
No.
and that technically would be the following calendar year, right?
Technically, yes. Yeah, and I have a problem with that language as well, because it's how it's being interpreted. So maybe there's a better way to say that,
Which,
because of the way it's worded, Michelle, in 9.5, Kevin, and I did it too. I'm thinking, okay, so we have to have a notice of withdrawal by June 30th for the following year.
But it's called, but then the
But-
effective date of such withdrawal to be July 1st of the following calendar year.
Right,
So it's
there
a-
needs to be a
That is-
clarifier
That
in
is
there.
following.
I don't know how else we could clarify that. Meaning if you give us notice, like the only other way we could do it is if we put dates in it. We
Yeah,
can't
we
do that
don't-
in an
we don't-
open-ended.
You don't want
Right,
to do that.
unless we said something like 6 months prior to the beginning of the
No, it's
next.
a year.
It's a
It's
year.
12 months prior.
It's a year.
So, say that, 12 months, put the words 12 months in there, so people will know from June 30th.
So something like, meaning, yeah, so a clarification.
Clarify that.
But it also goes to 9.6, which does say that the somewhat
12-month.
following the formal withdrawal of the party
1
of
year.
this agreement,
Yep.
including the 1-year notice period.
Yep.
Yeah, or even repeat the 1-year notice.
I mean, sitting here discussing it, I understand what it says, but when I was at home reading, highlighting and whatever, trying to find, okay, what makes sense if we're gonna do this, then that's what I highlighted. That's just how I read it. But as we discuss it, it makes sense the way it's worded, but again, with Stephanie, I think,
As councils change, I mean, 5 years from now, this table's going to look a lot different. May be better for
Yes.
wording to be more clear,
It,
so it gets passed on you
So
know,
different interpretation by
Right.
each person.
right?
Yeah.
I mean, we get it now as we're discussing it. And again, maybe as we meet annually, it's something we can reiterate, but if we can make that language clearer, let's try to do it.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I don't have that solution right now myself.
Of the following calendar year, equaling a one-year notice, or consistent with a one-year
Yeah,
notice.
but we can, I can
Something like
put
that.
wording in there for that.
Yep.
So in the current contract, there really is no stipulation for the governance and oversight enhancements. Would that be a new section added to the contract, Michelle?
You either could add it to that 4.1 or add it to, oh, so the stuff down
Because
below.
4.1 is dealing
Yeah,
with
yeah, yeah.
finance.
Yep, yep, you could add it. as a
So-
different one.
I would recommend a separate section talking about how the two towns are going to work together for checks and balances,
10.0,
basically.
Section 10.
Actually, it would have to be,
Three, administration under three. Like a 3.3.
Well, I think there
yeah, it
should
could go on 3.3, Robin. Yep,
Right?
yeah.
Yeah, we could do like a powers and functions of the municipalities.
Yeah, yeah.
And is that what everybody was thinking last time? That's what I wrote down in my
I
notes.
think it's a need that has to take
Yeah.
place.
Okay.
And I'm glad you put it down in writing.
If we're presenting this proposal to Benton, and Benton needs to have a seat at the table, and it needs to be clear so there aren't any, issues going forward, and there aren't, misunderstandings and hard feelings.
How often do you think that committee should meet?
I left that wide open, yeah.
Because I think that detail should be there. Because if not, you could say, well, we have the committee, they just haven't met.
Well,
Right.
how-
Or-
Minimum
or
of
are they
1
gonna be
year.
Every other week, right? Like what's,
In how
Right.
many?
Or any major purchases,
well,
anything that,
you want to have a meeting every time we think about buying a fire truck? Or
I
what do you consider
I
a
mean,
major
we're,
purchase? Like if I
would
could
be
buy
like a fire truck,
SCBA's with-
not air tanks or regular gear, but if you're gonna buy another fire truck or another ambulance, we should have a say in it because we're actually investing in your infrastructure.
Significant.
So you're gonna redo the firehouse, we're investing in your infrastructure.
However,
So-
in the past, it doesn't change your level of investment,
No.
Right.
right? So we know we have an $800,000 purchase coming up. That doesn't change the percentage that you pay of that. It's the same amount that you've always paid, right? So the capital reserve budget for fire is in the budget already. It's not a separate item. So you will automatically pay a portion of capital reserves when we bill you.
Right.
Based
That's
on-
already built
Based
in.
on the average calls.
Yeah, based on your
over
average
time.
calls, based
So,
on the
but
budget.
it's a separate capital reserve in our budget, it's just strictly for fire.
Yes.
Yes, right.
Yes, and it's listed in the budget documents that you have.
Right.
Yeah.
Right,
Right.
it's just the
No, I
fire
just
department.
wanna reiterate
And
that
it's its own separate line.
it's its own line in town of Fairfield's
in
budget, whereas other
Fairfield, it
capital
is-
equipments would be part of our budget because we're not sharing an
Right.
interlocal agreement with other towns.
It is a,
So whatever's invested goes strictly to fire.
To fire.
yeah, it is appropriated differently than all of our other capital reserve appropriations because it's cost shared between two municipalities. But it's treated the same exact way. It has its own designated account. And the $50 account, $50,000 account that's listed in the agreement also exists as a separate account. Whereas if there's an overage, an under amount in the budget, the amount goes to that, and that reserve account stays at 50,000. What it doesn't say in this agreement is when the fire department budget goes over by 20,000, we send you an additional bill, right? There's no wording regarding the overage, so keep that in mind.
As far as buildings. we
Not
have a
yet,
separate-
anyway.
We have a separate building account, not part, I mean.
That's
our-
not part of the equipment.
Right, not part of the equipment. So when you're talking fire trucks, ambulances, whatever equipment Travis needs, that's coming out of that fire equipment reserve that we both pay for.
Yeah.
When we're talking building upgrades, new buildings, that Fairfield's got their own separate budget for that. We're not billing Benton for that.
Yeah.
And since we're on that topic, because that's listed here, where it talks about, clear timelines and cost projections for major purchases or facility upgrades. There isn't one capital plan project, capital plan in the town of Fairfield that is obtainable by current budget appropriations. So the way capital reserves is handled here is it is a set amount 1 year, and it increases by $5,000, $10,000 the next year. And it just incrementally continues to go up. We know what we need to purchase in time, but that capital reserve account, up until 2 years ago, its balance was, or no, when did we get the ladder truck? 4 years ago? 5 years? 5, 6 years ago.
17.
Its balance was zero. Every penny of it was gone, because it was used for the match for the ladder truck, and
then we used to pay Rescue 3 off too, didn't we?
and then we had to use it, well,
To make the payment.
its appropriation every year is used to pay for Rescue 3 when we had to
Yeah.
take out the loan, because we just didn't have enough money to buy another fire truck when we had 2 trucks go down. So that absolutely is part of our budget. Conversations we have here should be part of yours, but just to manage expectations, there's not a plan out there that says we're going to appropriate $150,000 this year because we're buying a fire truck in 5 years from now. It's just, we can't obtain that because the cost is just too high for what
Right.
any of us would need to do. And that's all of our departments. I don't know about yours, but
Yeah, no, the capital fund that we have, we funded it. It was different every year. We put 10,000 in some years, 5,000 in some years. But just recently, alewife harvest, can be, $100,000 a year, depending on how they're running and how the ladders are working and
Water
what
levels.
side of the river we can fish off and all kinds of things. So we did pass something to put 50% of that into the capital reserve, right? Just so that
yeah.
we can start to build that up. And that's all for all kinds of different things, right? We don't have a lot of buildings. We have a sand shed, we have the town office, essentially, and the pump stations.
Yeah. So Travis, do you think a quarterly meeting of the Joint Oversight Committee?
That's what I was gonna say, yeah, because, kind of go in line with, like submitting the quarterly reports.
Yep.
We could talk about those reports at those meetings and go over all that stuff. So I think that would work good.
And do you want to meet, we should meet jointly, that way you're not having to necessarily go to 2 different places?
It's up to you. I can do either or.
I think this works, then everybody can communicate.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm game.
Build a relationship at least, right, with whoever. All right.
Yep.
The annual joint review will also take care of any concerns when we're talking about capital improvements and major purchases. So I think that's what that review should be about, and everybody's got a seat at the table.
And when do we, so if we're looking, the budget is set in July, so a year ahead of time. So you would be talking about, we're a little behind the 8 ball right now, but we'd be talking about,
Probably November, I would
Yeah.
guess,
Yeah.
November
Yeah.
timeframe,
Yeah.
so that we can
So
work
staff
that
start
budget.
budget preparations here by mid-November, and it usually goes through to December. However, it was yesterday that I got the numbers for Main State Retirement for next year, right? So even though we start early, it's usually January before a budget can be finalized. So anything that you do in the fall would be perfect for a pre-budget meeting.
Okay.
And I was thinking about, if you coupled that with your annual joint review meeting, where you talked about the performance matrix, budget outcomes, and future plans with everybody, and make that, all our meetings are open to the public, but if you did those kind of things at the same time, and say you did it August, September, we would also know by that point, exactly what your percentage is for the next year. Like, you could couple all of that stuff together and just continue to keep you in the loop as the budget is developed before it gets there. Yeah.
So you're suggesting September, Michelle?
I think that is good. Usually folks are done with vacation, the kids are back in school, folks are starting to get into a regular routine, you're not dealing with that.
And it's not holiday season.
And it's not holiday season.
Yeah. And
It's not hunting season, it's not any of the seasons.
It's before election in November.
Right, so it's all of that stuff. And it takes your current active sitting or newly elected maybe in June. So our council gets voted in November. So you'd have run the chance of it being the same party that started the budget meeting and discussing the budget outcomes. And what the future would look like. So you have a chance there of knowing that your goals continue from one fiscal year to the next. Could be just good timing. We can try it. If it doesn't work, we can always change it. But I feel like that would be just the best time to do it.
Are we in agreement on a mid-September annual joint review?
And then,
Try to avoid any major football.
and then do you just want to base the quarterly meetings off of that?
Yeah, it would be December,
Go
March,
quarterly
June.
after that,
After
yeah, yeah.
Which is good, because that, September gives us almost the end of Q3
Yeah.
fiscal year, so, yep. Calendar year.
Yeah, by that first quarterly, you're going to
It's
have
Q3,
Right.
Q1.
good budget numbers anyway. so.
Whatever.
Okay.
Okay.
So we're going to amend that, put that into this agreement, and then we can approve it as our towns.
Yep.
Excellent. I think that the way it's worded, I'm pretty happy with, especially adding those dates in. The reals.
Yeah.
You're not gonna offend me if you change it.
No, I think that looks good. No, I think it's really, it's the points, and I think, I like it because it allows, while have to wear my Fairfield hat, I like the fact that it just keeps us both honest and, just transparent, and I think it's, no hard feelings, and it's out there, we get a chance to discuss it. I think that's
Right.
huge.
Some of us pay taxes in both towns, so.
Some of us do, right?
I like that. So, on my Fairfield councilors, language looks good. The Joint Oversight Committee, we're going to agree on quarterly. We'll add the wording quarterly, and the annual joint review will be in September, and those quarterly meetings will be based after the September annual review.
Yep,
We're all in agreement?
yep.
I have a question on that, though. Since this may be different, since it's a standing committee, do we have to do anything with our,
Yes.
With your,
Yeah.
Yes.
It'll actually have to be, each municipality will have to create the committee.
Oh.
And then make their appointment to the committee
through the
and what it
council?
looks like.
Right.
So, and whether, what I would propose is that you let me come up with what your basic language looks like of what it does.
Yeah.
Based upon what you have here and its makeup, so you know what you're appointing. Because what you're gonna run into issues with is that, well, it's a committee that's going to meet to review these pieces. It doesn't say yet whether it makes recommendations. It doesn't, it doesn't say any of that stuff.
Right.
And you don't necessarily want a committee made up of equal members. That's the other piece. So that might be where you get the piece of Benton gets 2, Fairfield gets 3, right? And whether it be, and has to be an elected official from each municipality and a
Right,
member of the
exactly.
public, right? But let me make that up and we can get it to everybody for approval. And then you would have to each adopt it and then do your appointments.
I agree.
Yeah, sounds good.
Yeah, and notifications of mutual aid agreements, we just need to tweak the mutual aid section to make sure that the intent to receive copies is in there.
Where are you
That's
at?
7.2, section 7.
I think the piece of anything prior to execution actually could put a monkey wrench in that process. Meaning, we sometimes have to have a mutual aid agreement that's agreed to very, very quickly. And therefore, there wouldn't be that time to know that it could get scheduled for a meeting and have everybody review it and review comments before he can execute that. Because he has the power to do that. most of our mutual aid agreements are long-term, and there's timeframes in them anyway. But I don't want to see us add language that actually ties his hands in what could potentially be a life-saving matter, right? So,
No, agreed.
yeah. And I didn't think that was your
That makes sense.
intent,
No,
but.
that's not.
Yeah. I just thought it was to get copies of the mutual aid agreements.
Yeah.
So you have.
And I think we do send them now, or we haven't done new mutual aid agreements in a long time. Now that we have one with, we have them with the county, we have standing ones with everybody around us. And it's like one document and it includes a large number of municipalities, all in the same document. They did them in, we were just talking about
Yeah,
this today.
yeah. I mean, it's something that I should probably review and just, go over.
Because the police department's just expired, or are about to
Yeah.
expire. So they're getting ready to review all of theirs, but I think ours were done in 18,
Yeah, 17 sounds familiar.
because we had to
17,
redo the
18.
language on a bunch of them, because we had to acknowledge the
Yeah.
county piece too. So, but yeah.
Counselor Kitchen?
Yeah, I can see where they're going with this. In fact, I made notes, and I think I talked to you about it after our last meeting. I personally disagree that the police chief, with no offense to him, negotiates and approves it. I think that should be something the town council and the selectmen do.
Oh, they do.
Those,
They do.
They do. Sorry to clarify. So they, unless it's an emergency, right? But if they come in, the council will approve, ratify any mutual aid agreement that is done. You're required to. So it does ultimately come before you to do that.
it doesn't say that here.
No, it doesn't say that here, but it would have to within our process anyway.
So, yeah, so
Right.
that language has to.
We can tweak it a little bit
Yeah, yeah.
without tying his hands.
And you're gonna have to have something in there for the emergency.
So we just need to add a line in the bottom of 7.2.
Yeah.
I think the last sentence basically says that, it just needs to be clarified differently.
On the current document?
Yeah,
Mutual aid agreements shall be negotiated, approved, and administered by the fire chief after notice is given. Notice, keyword there that I highlighted, to the municipal officers of the parties. Right,
Is that
yeah.
basically what your intention is, right? That's how I interpret it. He negotiates them, but they have to be approved by the municipal officers.
No, this just says he has to give notice that he's done it.
Right, it doesn't.
That's all this says.
Yeah. But you've got to have the emergency piece in, so he's got to be able to do his job. Right?
Yeah.
Yeah, so, but you've got to have the second piece, which is what you talked about, that.
Yeah, and I want to,
Boards
and I want to
have-
double check, there's a statewide mutual aid thing too that's relatively new, we need to double check that. But we can tweak some wording to this to make sure everybody's included in the conversation.
So, I mean, really, we could change the word the second to last word, municipal officers of both parties. And it would be fine then, right?
I think so.
Because that would capture what Benton has on the table here. It would just read, the new language would be mutual aid agreement shall be negotiated, approved, administered by the fire chief after notice is given to municipal officers of both parties.
Yeah, it makes it clear.
Yeah.
Any other thoughts? I get it. I think both make sense. Are we in agreement that that simple language change clears up the intentions of what the proposal was? Robin, does that make sense?
Yeah, because you're going to say,
Both parties.
mutual aid agreements shall be negotiated, approved, and administered by the fire chief.
Doesn't say.
No, it's not, what it isn't saying is that the council and the select board is gonna, a longer-term agreement is what I'm hearing, right, is approved by the council already, right? Or has been approved by the council already, because the authority to sign on behalf of the city or town, right, is the council.
Yeah.
Or unless there's another provision inside of your charter, right? So it's not saying, what it's saying is, the way it's worded now, mutual aid agreement shall be negotiated, approved, and administered by the fire chief after notice is given to, but not that, the council,
So you could put after notice and approval is
Yes.
done by.
right? Because you still want to have approval, even if Benton wasn't involved, you'd still want to approve the mutual aid agreement. But you've also got to have something in here about,
Yeah, it gives me
Provision
the
for
authority
him.
to go out and draft
Yeah.
them,
yeah,
a mutual aid agreement and seek them and.
So do we take the word approved out, negotiated and administered by the fire chief after approval is given by the municipal's officers?
I think you're going to have to put subject to the approval of.
yes, subject, I agree.
Right.
Yeah.
I have that highlighted too. So after negotiated, we're going to cross out approved and put subject to the approval of?
So it's going to be, agreements shall be negotiated, approved, and administered by the fire chief after, fire
subject.
chief, subject to the municipal officers of both parties' approval. Well, I have to wordsmith
Yeah.
it. Because I also need to add that emergency provision in there. Because what would end up happening is that we could present to the town council here in Fairfield for a mutual aid agreement that we need to be effect next week, but Benton doesn't wait for 2 more weeks. Right, so we have to do something
And,
that,
and ultimately, like, if our fire station caught on fire and burned down, I would probably have to sign an emergency mutual aid agreement with surrounding communities, and I would not wait for approval from, the council.
Yeah,
And I'd see it from my house.
right?
Know that
Yeah.
it's
So
happening.
there's things that we have to be able to do.
Yeah.
So I'll need to, I
So
understand
you'll
what
tweak-
everybody's
you'll
looking
tweak
for.
that last line
And we'll
and get
tweak the
back.
language, yes. I think I'm on the same page.
Okay.
You'll know when you get the new draft if it's not.
Okay. Any other questions on the local agreement? I think we've covered it all.
We go over contractual safeguards, so I make sure I understand that as well.
Yeah, we may have to tweak that just a little bit, based on what we just talked about. So we're talking about mutual budget up above, right? And that
Yeah.
we're approving the budget, and we talked about that, it's gonna be based on some formula that says, how many seats each board gets, right? Or council and board gets. The intention here was to get a seat at the table so that both parties were engaged, not to be forceful about it. So I read it now, and I probably would have softened that a little bit if I had been thinking that way. So,
I think that's the intent of everybody here.
yeah. So we're already talking about that in the budget piece. So the threshold piece is already being covered up above, don't you think so? I think.
Yeah, because I think this language that you had here was actually going to create some problems.
Yeah, I think we're already handling it
Yeah.
up in the budget and program control. So I don't know that it's needed anymore necessarily.
Because you don't need your legislative body to approve any changes we make to this, do you?
Not to the contract,
Right.
no,
That's what I thought.
to the budget.
So your legislative body in Benton is different than the legislative body here in Fairfield. So in Fairfield, the legislative body, other than the operating budget, is the town council. So your legislative body, the way this was written, is that we wouldn't have been able to amend this agreement
No.
without you going to town meeting, and I don't think that that's your intent.
No,
Okay.
no, that is not. So I almost feel like maybe we've got to take some of this stuff and put it up in the budget area, but it really means the same thing. So I don't know that we need an extra thing, is what I'm saying.
What if you put that the oversight committee
Yeah.
is also responsible for an annual review of the agreement?
Sure.
Because if you did that, then that would make sure annually that the agreement is still working for both parties.
Yeah, that would immediately put in a contractual safeguard.
Yep.
Yeah,
Yep.
and then
Yeah,
that
we
way
need
you
the
know that if
language.
it's not, after that review, and that review probably should happen before your annual joint review meeting by that committee.
Yeah.
So to make sure that it's working, because if recommendations to the agreement need to happen, they can be presented all at that same time as well. And we can add that as part of that piece if that works for everybody.
Yep, something like that.
Because sometimes that works well. Basically, it stops this agreement from being signed today, and we all know what we're going to do today, we know what we're going to do tomorrow. But 2 years from now, we find out it's been sitting on a shelf for 10 years. All of a sudden, and nobody's really paid attention to any of it. So that would be the best part.
And it could be as simple as, everything's looking great, we
Yeah,
don't have any
exactly.
concerns, move on, right? We're not going to change anything.
Yeah, it's a pretty vague safeguard, but at least it'll be there.
Yep,
Yeah.
yep, I think so. I'll take that out. And then, I don't know how I feel about the last piece now that we've talked about everything. So we put money into this thing, but it's not really, originally we were thinking it was gonna really be building a lot of money, but it doesn't sound like it is, based on what you just told us. We had thought, we might decide to put up a new building, and we had to come up with each $500,000 or something
We'd
like that.
love that.
I know. You'd love that. So.
Let me put that in this
In
agreement.
the ilk of, we've invested and we put a large amount of money in some reserve account, that's what that was coming from. It doesn't sound like that's gonna
You
happen.
wait just a second, and I'll tell you exactly what our
Okay.
current balance is in that
Okay.
account.
No, but as we
That makes
move on
sense.
into our agenda here, depending on in which way we move forward, we may want to make sure we've got safeguards in place for appropriate capital equipment reserve.
Yep,
If
Yep.
if we do move forward with what we're going to talk about in a minute, we want to make sure that when Chief Larry says, I need a new whatever equipment, we have budgeted as a group that is in there, and it is going to grow, because you're talking about equipment that may last for 10 years, but when you're talking about a $350,000 purchase, that means we got to put $35,000 a year away for 10 years. And that needs to be there, because when that comes time to be replaced, we have to agree that we've put it away, we haven't kicked the can down the road, which has happened to us, prior councils, probably, we need to make sure we're looking ahead to the future, so.
Yeah, you can-
As long as that oversight committee's there and we're on the same page, I think.
so if we think that
Yeah.
at some point we'll be having more large deposits into whatever this reserve account is, because we're trying to buy X or Y, or
Yeah.
we're trying to build a new building, right? Then,
The good part with the oversight committee and having that seat at the table,
Yeah.
we make those decisions together.
Yeah.
You can plan for it.
And early enough. that-
And early enough, and, as long as we're working together, I'm not worried about a withdrawal process. Really, it's about how well we work together
Right.
and tweak these amendments that we're talking about.
each community needs these services,
Yeah.
right? We can't live without them.
The better we work together,
That's
the better
right.
the costs go down for all our citizens, so that's what we're looking for. So I think the way it's written now is fine. As we, again, get into our agenda here tonight, we may have to address that again in a little bit.
So the balance I have as of mid-December was just over $200,000 in that reserve account. And you'll notice in the budget, instead of a $5,000 increase, we did bump it to a $10,000 increase, simply because of the fact that with the addition of the ambulance, and if that is something we're going to pursue, that has a tendency to need a few more components than just, say, a fire truck does when you get all of those pieces. So we added just a little bit more to that, because an ambulance is more expensive than Med 1 was, plain and simple. So we increased that to 10 this year instead of 5, as we have in years past. And then if a purchase of a second ambulance, if we find one, we believe the cost of such will fit within our already existing reserve account. So it's not like we would need to go out and get additional funds to do that. We have those. It will deplete them again, but it will be there. Because a fire truck at this point you're talking $600,000. You know, we're not gonna get that by appropriating $100,000 every year and not putting money into anything else. So it's just, you'll end up either getting a loan, and usually you plan for those, and you usually get a firefighter grant, federal grant for those to help cover those costs, and then you just pay the match, which makes it a lot more feasible. But yes, that would be part of any annual budget conversation.
Otherwise, we're in together on a bond.
Yeah. Well, when we lost those two pumpers, if you're not aware, a couple of years ago, we had two pumper trucks that their mounts for their bodies completely rusted out. And we lost two at the same exact time. And the only way to get one was we ended up having to take out a loan. It was a 5-year loan. But we had enough money in our annual appropriation to pay the loan annually. So that's why that fund did not grow. We just paid that off last year. So that should start to grow now, because we have about $50,000 annually that we're not paying out on that loan anymore. So that'll grow a little bit faster.
Okay.
Okay, are we good with the discussion on the agreement? Anybody want to add anything else? All right, moving on. Let's discuss the future of ambulance transport services.
We're okay with the budget.
So, do you want to talk about 26, 27 fire budget first?
I think it also goes hand in hand with the second one, but you did receive, hopefully you got it early enough to review. We took your feedback from the last meeting and tried to really simplify the explanation of all of this. We did provide you the full detailed spreadsheet of the department budget, which is pretty close to exactly what would go in our town report. When we publish in the town report, all the section that's wages and benefits, just so you're aware, is not spelled out that way. It's lump summed into one number. But I did provide you with all of that detail and let you know, and it tried to give an explanation as to, the amount that we had billed Benton, what the difference was, why there's a difference. And then going on with the rest of the budget proposal. The budget proposal is based upon the fact of us adding 2.5 new staff members, which would get us to the 2 in, 2 out rule. With our firefighters, we added on 3 more last year. We would technically be adding 3 more full-time positions this year. However, we have a full-time 40-hour-a-week utility position that we would convert into the 56-hour full-time shift position, which is why this new addition is only about 2.25 employees and not the full, and eliminate the utility position. However, that is still subject to union negotiations. We'd have to go to the union and request that. I don't anticipate any major problems, but that will have to be done because that position is listed within our union contract. So that is the budget that we had put forward. The chief and I had worked on this. At one point in time, he had 3 completely different budgets going for all the different scenarios, and we decided to just do the one for everything that we needed and put it forward, and that's what we're presenting to you. The town council has not met to go over any of their department budgets yet, and neither has our budget committee. So you all are the first ones to take eyes on this evening. This is, like I said, we just got Main State retirement numbers yesterday. If you have Main State retirement in your community, you'll be happy to know that the employer's share did not increase from last year. It is the only retirement benefit, or only benefit I know of, that did not change. Unlike insurance, that went up 9%.
So can I have Travis explain the fire audit that happened a couple of years ago? So Benton's aware of why we are in need of more staffing to be compliant with 2 in, 2 out rule of the that's why we added 3 additional personnel this year. We did put it to our taxpayers as a separate line item to vote. They decided they wanted overwhelmingly. I can personally tell you I didn't know how we were going to pay for it, so I wasn't for it, but we need to get there, and I know that we're just finding a way to make sure we can afford to do it. But Travis, can you just interject on how we need to get to 4 personnel per shift?
Yeah, sure. So I don't know how much history you guys know, but we'll start back. I guess, all the way back to the 70s. As far as I know, Fairfield's been covering Benton for longer than that, since the early 90s. I think forever, basically. I mean, essentially, to my knowledge, Benton's never had their own fire department.
No.
So in the 70s, we started rescue personnel. They had fire drivers here in town. They added rescue personnel, then started providing that service, rescue services, first responding. And that stayed that way, 2 people on duty at a time, 365 days a year from the 70s up until 2000, I believe. At that point, they added the utility day position, 40 hours a week, Monday through Friday. That lasted until 2010. 2011, 2012. That was eliminated. We went back to 2 people per shift, 365 days a year, until this last year when we added 3. Over that same period of time, calls increased substantially. In the, I don't know, I don't have the numbers in front of me, but, we're talking several hundred calls a year, increasing year after year after year after year, with no staffing increases. So it got to the point, last year, we were, in 2023, we ran almost 1,900 calls, and with 2 people per staff. We did add the utility person back, I apologize, in 23, I believe we added the utility position back. So, with the call company, the part-time staff, that has also dwindled over the years, as with every department across the state. So, leading us with, 2 people on duty, maybe 3 during the day, going to fires, medical emergencies, car accidents, and no help coming from the part-time staff, because everybody's busy, right? It's just, everybody has lives, they work full-time jobs, double jobs, whatever the case may be. So, Maine BLS requires us on the fire ground to have a 2-in, 2-out rule, with some certain exceptions. And that means we're not supposed to enter an IDLH environment, meaning like a house on fire, with 2 people if there's not 2 people to back them up or perform a rescue of the first 2 people. There is exceptions if we think somebody is trapped inside the home, if it's unknown, there's exceptions that we can, skip around that rule, basically, to make an effort to try to rescue somebody. But obviously, the more personnel in the least amount of time, the better the outcome, typically. So with our response times have always been pretty good. Where we were lacking was just the staffing. With 2 people, we were just super limited to what we could do and what we could do safely. So we brought the conversation forward of adding more staffing. This has been brought to the council many times over the last 20, 25 years. And unfortunately, just due to cost, it's been shot down. I know we've had a lot of, tough budget years, and obviously taxes going up is never a good thing. So in 2023, I believe we did the audit. We had reached out to a company out of New Hampshire, a third party, so they don't know the area, they don't know the departments. They came in, and we asked them basically to do a bumper-to-bumper, so to speak, analysis of the department, from staffing, equipment, facilities. They even look at our SOPs, our training, everything that the fire department does, and give us a recommendation on how we should proceed, because that's when we started having conversations about adding more people, possibly looking at transporting services to help offset cost of operations. So this audit was done. It took a considerable amount of time. They met with a few counselors, they interviewed a bunch of staff, they toured the facility in town and the center station as well. Went over all the equipment, all our training records.
In the region. They toured the region.
Yes,
So
yeah, they did
Benton as
visit.
well?
Yeah, they did visit mutual aid departments. They talked to the comm center, our dispatch. They review water records from the water district. It's really a really detailed analysis. So that was done. Their recommendations were made. They presented them to the council. At the time, they recommended that we do go to the four firefighters per staff for a couple reasons. That, again, the 2 in, 2 out was the big one. And they also recommended that we look at possibly starting an ambulance transport service, and which would require the need for at least a minimum of 4 people per staff to do it with 2 ambulances. So that's where those recommendations came about from that audit, and we kind of been slowly poking away at those over the last couple of years. Last year we did the 3 staff increase, and then this year we're looking to get to that 4th staff to fill our quota, so to speak, for that 2 in, 2 out initially. And yeah, and then obviously we're still looking at the transport aspect of it all. So does that kind of get you guys a roundabout idea of that? Have you guys ever seen the audit from Benton? You guys were, yeah. I knew you guys were given copies.
They helped pay for it.
I know you might, well, I know they did. I know you have some new counselors, so if anybody needs to see it, just let me know and I'll get you guys a copy.
So Fairfield, certainly, we had a lot of meetings on it. Went over, it was, a lot to take in and understand why the needs are there. It boils down to safety, not only safety of our staff, but safety of our citizens. Something needs to be done. Our staff are, by contract, have to be EMT
Advanced, yeah, within a year or the next available class.
So we have training. Travis has the fire safety school as well. We're a little different than some of the other local entities that are volunteer, the Chinas, the Albions. But just knowing that our staff are already trained and qualified, so when they show up for a call, I mean, you're being triaged, you're already being serviced and done. They're firefighters, not just EMS service. Bulk of our calls are going to be probably that fire call, would you say, Travis?
What's that? I'm sorry.
With the bulk of our calls?
EMS, yeah.
EMS.
Yeah, absolutely, yeah, probably
1,200 of the 19 or so, something like that.
Yeah, I think about 1,300 that last. Haven't done the data for 2025 yet, but for 2024, about 1,300 EMS calls out of the 1,800 calls, so.
So, when we get into the next portion, we start talking about ambulance EMS, our staff are already double duty. They're already trained qualified firemen, as well as going to be paramedics on shift, and we already have paramedics. So unlike just an ambulance service, our guys are double duty. They're going to show up for your car crash and service people and go into house fires, so whatever may need to be done. So that's important for us to know as we move forward. When we talk about the EMS portion of it, let's go back to the budget portion. Michelle and Travis put together a 26-27 budget. She said it already includes the additional staff to get to the 13 personnel needed. And it also includes the contractual raises already. Michelle mentioned Maine PERS, though we've got a 3-year contract with fire that we signed last year. This is already into year 2 of that contract. Those raises, everything is already in there, so that's part of that increase. It's going to be a fixed cost because we have that labor union contract. So that's done for a couple of years. That's something we don't have to worry about. But as we move forward, we'll have that annual review and agreement, and we can work forward on those negotiations in the future as well. But when we start talking about ambulance service, and you'll hear all kinds of negatives about you're never going to make money, you're not going to do this, you're not going to do that. We, both towns, currently have a separate line item that we're billed from a private entity that determines a per capita rate. It's not a contract bid, it's a no bid service. They tell us what we're going to pay for that service. We have no say. It's a take it or leave it, And I mention that because when we show up for an EMS call, we're already servicing our citizens. Travis and his men and women They're already using our supplies. They've already triaged. They're pretty much ready to go. Our response time's going to be better because we're local. We just don't transport. Therefore, we can't bill. So whatever supplies and usage we've done, we can't be reimbursed for. And because we have a separate line item in both of our budgets, that's outside the fire department budget. So we look at, the 22 or 23% that Benton's going to pay for the fire department, that does not count what you're going to pay for Delta on top of the fire budget. So as we look forward and move forward on what we want to do with a possible ambulance service, we were lucky enough to have a large donation for a new ambulance. We don't have to incur that cost. We have full-time staff already in place. We do need to hire an additional 2 people, 2.25, but it's really 2 people. One's going to go from a 40-hour position to a 56. And if we provide that transport service, Chief Leary will need to make those additional mutual aid agreements with local towns for ambulance service, for EMS service, not just fire. So that's something that has to be done. That's going to take time. In Fairfield's last council meeting, we gave him the permission, approval to start looking into an intermittent transport service so that he could get started on the process and the ways. But if we agree to go forward as an ambulance service, that gives us the opportunity to bill insurance for that transport service. It's never going to be a revenue generator, but it's always going to be an offset in the personnel that we need and we want, or already have most of that personnel. And it's going to eliminate an item in both of our budgets that are not already included in the fire department budget. So with the numbers, Michelle's got a great 2-page letter explaining everything. I mean, we're looking at $1 million, $1.1 million less expense for both towns from what we're currently proposed to pay.
In 2 years.
No, it's immediate.
Immediate?
There will be a transition period. I would say best case scenario is 6 months. Probably worst case scenario is a year. Obviously, you've got to hire 2 more personnel. We have to buy another ambulance. People have to be trained. Travis has to have the time to get everybody trained, qualified. Billing is another thing that will need to be set up so that we can, fund this. But if we do decide to go that way, you look at the second page where you can see what our projected cost will be from that contracted service that we don't have a say in. It could be 55 per capita, it could be 60, it could be 75, it could be 100. 3 years ago, it was 0. Now, we just don't have any control over what it's going to be, but it's a service our citizens want, it's a service that we want. So those numbers that we look at, even though they're not technically hypothetical because we've been told in September this is what they're going to be, I believe that's just my personal opinion, but those numbers go away as soon as we're in place to do that service ourselves, which again, we're already going to these calls. We're already there. These men and women are already servicing our citizens. We just don't transport. Therefore, we can't bill. We know that contracted service received insurance revenue of $620,000 up till March of this 2025, from both towns, from Fairfield and Benton. That's their actual receivables. That doesn't include what they bill the towns on a per capita basis. Current contracts at 35 per capita. So that's where I'm coming up the number of basically $1.1 million that it would save the 2 towns. And again, that's not a year, it's not 2 years. It's instant. When we decide we want and are trained and ready to do the service, that goes away and the billing starts. What the revenue will be, I really don't know, but we've got a good 3-year average, and Travis has done that with the town of Clinton when he was a dual chief.
So I'm really in favor of moving forward, getting those 2 additional people, hiring that ambulance, and say, let's give them the ability to do it, and stop spending money on a service we have no ability to control.
So,
Councilor Thibodeau.
but I think we need to be realistic too and know that we can't provide transporting with just 1 ambulance. So we would need to have another ambulance. We also would have to have more supplies. We'd have to have ongoing training and recertification for our staff, which was also a recommendation from the audit. That I see, and it's stated in, I think it was this document, that we're, for 26, 27, we're already going to be paying so much money. And whether it's at 55 per capita or 60 per capita, we're not ready for that. So when you're saying it's going to be almost immediately, I have a hard time seeing that. I really think that for 26, 27, to get all our, if we go this route, and it's a commitment, all those chickens have to be lined up in a row, or ducks. And then we're going to go and say, okay, now we're able to do this. And that 507,000 or 554,000, that won't be there for 27, 28. So I think reasonably speaking, this coming year might be the biggest one because we're still paying. If we decide to go that route, we're still going to have to pay for services from Delta. But after that, we can start to get some of our money back. Again, we've talked about the second ambulance, and it doesn't have to be a new one. It could be a used one. My concern is, where are we going to put it? And that's a big issue for me, because we're in the process of getting a safety building or a new one, but that's 5-10 years down the road.
That's probably 27, 28 or longer. And I'm with Stephanie too. This is not adjustable right now. Maybe a year, 2 years down the road, because we just, last council meeting, just gave Travis permission for
The
a temporary license, transport license. Let's just make sure Travis gets that, get everyone trained, see how that goes for maybe a year. 26, 27, I don't see that happening.
No.
Okay, so
maybe 27,
let me
28.
answer that first, but then I'm going to have Michelle chime in afterwards. So when I first started talking to you about this, I said best case scenario is 6 months. We need to get another ambulance, hire 2 personnel to get fully staffed. Okay? That includes that. That's best case scenario.
Right.
That puts us in July 1st. Okay? That's best case scenario. Worst case scenario, a year, which means that we may need to contract with Delta or somebody else for 6 months while we're in that transition period. The longer you put it off, the longer your process is going to still be, regardless of whether we have an intermittent or not. You still have to have the personnel. You still have to hire buy that second ambulance. So if we say, okay, let's move forward, because we can't control our costs anymore. Okay, that's it. And again, we're looking at 55, 60. What if it comes in at 75? What if it comes in at 100? Okay, now you're $1 million in the hole on top of your fire department budget, still need the 2 personnel to get fully staffed for the fire department, and you have no way to recoup any of those costs for a service other than transport we're already providing. Are there going to be more supplies? There are. Not what you think it's going to be, because we're already providing those supplies. We just don't get reimbursed for it. It's part of our fire department budget. We show up and we're doing oxygen, saline, whatever it may be that Travis needs for supplies, bandages, in your transport, you can bill for those supplies in that service, because now you're a billable entity. Right now, we have no way to recoup our supplies costs.
Wait.
So again, like I said, best case scenario, 6 months. That means we act now and say, this is the direction we want to go. Best case scenario, that gets us to July 1st. Yeah, a lot has to be done. A lot of agreements have to be made, purchase have to be made, personnel have to be hired, trained, qualified. There may be a 6-month overlap where we need that service. But again, our contract runs out June 30th, and all we've been told was 2 months after we signed a new contract that, I'm sorry, you guys, your per capita cost is going to 70%, 90%. We don't know. It changes every month. We get a new letter. So I would like us to take control of our
Medical supplies, you'll see where that amount actually has been increased by $25,000. So that is with the idea of what transporting would look like throughout the course of 26-27 as an estimate. So we've already taken that into consideration. All the other increases in this budget, specifically the training that council has discussed, the training piece is up 11,000. We just brought it from our, what had 4,000 up to 15,000. We'll start there because there is additional staff and we do want to work on training. And then everything else is direct related to personnel, staff, and additional staff. And charges, increases that are beyond our control, right? Health insurance, all of those pieces. That's it. There's no other change in this budget. Because of the fact that the town of Fairfield does already respond and provide services on all of those calls, that we are not able to get reimbursed for. It wasn't that much of a difference. I mean, there is a change. It's a $25,000 increase for that purpose. And then, again, like we had said, the estimate that we were given in September by Delta was 55 to 60 per capita. So that's what's in front of you, just so you see that. So the two municipalities combined at 55 per capita is $507,870. If it's at $60 per capita, the two municipalities, it's $554,040. If you did your own transport service, that cost would go away. It's not going to go away for 26, 27 because of the simple fact that we do not have the time and everything we need to be ready to know that we can start July 1. It's just not there. And it's not going to be there even if you decided today, because the municipalities have to, in our budgets, appropriate the funds for this budgetary increase anyway. The other piece of that I provided you in that document that came from the very similar audit report that was done by the state folks, which is the KVM stat report, which is the only report we are actually able to receive the actual collected revenue by Delta for our combined municipalities in the years of 2024, 23, and 22. That's collected, not billed. They bill over $1 million. They collected, and as of this document stated, March 26, 2025, for the year of 2024, they collected over $600,000. For the year of 23, they collected $585,000, and in 22, $517,000. Does that mean that's exactly what we're going to collect? No, because of course that's automatically dependent upon call volume, right? So I can't guarantee you that that's what we would collect and never would. But if you think about the cost associated with paying for Delta at over $500,000 annually, the possibility of collecting $500,000 in revenue to offset your expenses, that's $1 million savings between the two municipalities in what it would ultimately cost you. So while 26, 27, like I stated in here, would be the most expensive year during your transition, it is expected that the following years you would start to see a decrease in those expenses and provide an enhanced level of service because our staff are already going on those calls. That's the piece that
You
makes
did
us
budget
unique
in
than some.
$150,000 in revenue in this 26-20.
Yes, just a small amount of revenue, only because of the fact that the council had basically said, look into the intermittent piece. It's a shot in the dark. It says that in there.
Yeah.
That's just what we thought, because Delta would still be our primary response entity
And we also-
under the contract.
And we also have the possible agreement with Delta too. the other
Right,
agreement.
so we're looking at a potential agreement with Delta in which if we do the paramedic intercept piece with them, they would pay us $300 if our paramedic had to go in their ambulance with them to the hospital. That in turn also could potentially increase the per capita fees, so would ultimately pay for it. We figured like 3 times, but that's okay. But there's possibilities of some revenue, which is more than per se, I think, the current $7,000 in revenue we have for the fire department right now, which comes from some trust money that we pull in to fund a couple of programs that are within the budget, and some occasional we get, we do insurance billing now for car accidents when they happen on the interstate, various people from out of town, and that's just dependent upon collection, but we do have that revenue that comes through from time to time. So I just wanted to clarify that those pieces, those increases that Councilor Thibodeau had mentioned, that has been accounted for in this budget. They're already in here. And know that they would, because we don't know exactly everything, what the expenses would be for medical supplies, we can just make that estimate.
Do we need to update our collection, that collection, or we charges each year?
So
Update that list?
for fees,
Fees, yes.
so those are based upon insurance billing rates. That's a different piece. We would contract with an entity that would do that billing for us. Typically, the way those contracts work is they get paid if they collect money, right? So we don't pay them a fee. They deduct from what they collect. That is part of the process that the chief has to work on, even for this intermittent license piece to be done. These are pieces that have to be in place in order for us to even submit to a license for the state. So that's already collectively being done. We're working on that.
Michelle, do we have money in capital reserve for another ambulance?
Yes.
Well, because I know I was there when we took a picture with that new ambulance, and Al says, if we need anything, ask. Will that,
Be greedy.
I know that, down the road, he says, you need anything, just ask.
Yeah.
But I know we just got this, it's too soon for the second one, and things like that, so.
And we've been having that conversation about where does it live? How does it live? What size do you get so that we can make sure it fits? Because it's a second one and not a primary, it can be smaller than the one we have. Can we fit it in? You know, does Med 1 as a unit now not necessarily need to be there to respond all the time? Does it now get to park outside and we only have to pull it when we have to?
Or
does it
so
go-
we already decide to park it with Med 1, not put an ambulance over to Central Station.
Yeah, no, it'd be too far out for your response times, but anything's a possibility, right? So all those things, we would have those conversations as to where that was lived.
Council Cushion had a question, and I'd like to ask Benton their thoughts on it.
So, after our last meeting in October, I spent a lot of time researching data, looking at it, because I've always said I was neither for nor against it. The data is going to speak, and I've been looking at the data. In the last council meeting, I also talked about my concern for the human factor side of the situation. I'll touch on that in a second. And I know that we had talked as a council, it could be as soon as 6 months. So, of course, I'm going to challenge that. I'm going to challenge the assumptions. Since October, and I wanted to talk to our council about it, and Benton as well, I felt that we should have, aside, I know Michelle and Travis is probably already working on it, what we called in the military a plan of action and milestones. So I set out on the venture of coming up with a plan of action and milestones on how this could work or not work. What would we have to do to essentially open this new business? That's essentially what we should go into it looking at it. And right now, I have a 34-page document that I have generated, that I've extracted data from both documents that we had, the pros and cons of that, and then the audit itself. I've gone to other, Dr. Townsend and I also went to a meeting in Waterville. It was Dr. Peel?
Okay, yeah.
Pay?
Dr. Pay.
Pay, and listened to some of the things he had. I generated this in hopes at least it's a plan to deviate from. And what we were talking about just now, and I'll just give you an idea of what's in here, and I would like to, once I get it all cleaned up, I'll forward it out to see, and we were talking about the timelines. Let me go back to where I was here. So the first thing was the timelines and what would it take? Bear with me, I got a bunch of different pages here. And I think, Tim, you kind of hit the nail on the head. What I was waiting for to generate this was this data here, and then what we can plug in. They were just estimated numbers from both the reports on what we would get, how much it would cost, everything compiled into this one document. So the timelines, and I just stuck random numbers in there. Called different milestones. I came up with, and if you'll bear with me, I'm just going to go over them real quick. I came up with 10 milestones that I generated for myself to sanity check what could be presented to me as a councilman. Paramedic hiring, mutual aid agreements. That's the timelines for this. Mutual aid agreements, and I went who the responsibility was. Everything was 6 to 12 months max, really, based off all the research I've done, how long it would take. And there's different things in there. Build a QA program, facility assessment, capital reserve funding, how we're going to manage that, who's going to do that. Provider wellness program, again, the human factors. Billing and collection plan, medical director commitment. There's things that we would have to do there, the scope of work, et cetera. Regional impact mitigation, how that's going to, and then all the way right down, it goes all the way down through to final vote or approval with all the numbers in here. Training, dry run, go live, gradual transition, keep Delta, there's different scenarios in here too what they recommended, whether it be a hybrid, working with Delta, like they already said, we could offset some of the costs, $300, whatever the case may be. I put all of that in here as far as what we should be looking at and expecting. So each milestone or gateway, as you call it, this is at least a plan to look at to say, is this attainable? Because I was challenging. I didn't think it was attainable. I'll be the first one to say, once I looked at all the data and I got everything that we're looking at, the data says it's attainable. We have to look at the numbers. And once I clean this up, I would like to share it with you guys. It really comes down to the human factors side of the house that, I really haven't had a chance to look at this, but there are things in the human factors aspect that are going to cost money that we're not paying for now. Quality assurance program.
We have that
things
already.
to that nature.
We have that already.
We already have that, Kevin.
We're required to have that.
What's that?
We're required to have QA/QI programs.
So again, that stuff may fall right off of here. I don't know what the specifics are, but anything that was in these two reports, I put it here so we can check it off. And there's stuff we've already checked off. The building committee's already working on stuff that they've already recommended. We've already hired other people. So a lot of the stuff that I've been working on
We already
since
have the
October.
paramedics.
What's that?
We already have one paramedic per shift.
Right.
We already have them.
So it's here. I mean, once I can get these numbers, or I can put the numbers on a highlighted estimate, I'll share it with you guys to look at it. And I think it's a very clear plan that we could potentially get this done. Again, I'm not the town manager or the fire chief who's going to be doing all the legwork. But with direction, if this becomes our priority, I think it's very attainable within 12 months. Safely and honestly, having one of the better EMS in the region based off of what we have. So, and if you guys have watched any of the council meetings, I was the first one to stand up and raise bullshit. But I've been divested in this since October, and the data doesn't lie. It's just a matter of making sure we have the right sustainability in place in the human factors. The human factors is what I'm primarily concerned about. Burnout, all the different things that they talked about in the reports that that is kind of bothersome, that I'm sure we already have something in place. If we do, done, it's done, it's done. It could be a lot quicker. So I just wanted to throw that out there. I'm not afraid of looking at the numbers, diving in, asking the questions, but I think now I've turned the page and looking at all this between the 34-page document that I have on just that, and then I think the human factors one that I wrote up was like 20-something pages. Now I think we owe it to our residents of Benton and Fairfield to say, why are we not doing this? Why are we not doing this? There are some key things in there regionally that I think that we would have some concerns over. And it's primarily having the people to hire. They're just not out there. They're just not out there. So there's some things like that, again, you'll see it in my unofficial draft report or whatever, my concerns. But I'll send it out. Hopefully you guys get an opportunity to read it. Again, it was all estimated off of stuff, but compile that information.
Thank you.
Thank you for the hard work.
Can we hear from Benton? Robin, John, Robin? I'd love to hear your thoughts.
My thoughts, I'm all for it, for the fact of what we're paying the other entity, and we get really nothing for it. And there's undetermined numbers on where it's gonna go. It's gonna keep growing. And instead of giving that money away to somebody else, why not invest in ourselves? And yeah, it's gonna be expensive. Like you said, the first year is really gonna be bad, because we're gonna have to have both. Until Travis is able to get everything in line and online, it's gonna be expensive, and it's gonna be, most of the work is gonna be on Travis. But I really think, and I agree, that it's obtainable. And I think in the long run, it's gonna be way better for us, way better for the citizens. Response time, you're not having your mom sitting there waiting to be transported for 20 minutes because Delta hasn't showed up. Now they can get and go, and she's getting the immediate response that she needs. And I think that's more important than a lot of it. The numbers say that this can work. It's not like overreaching. So I think it's something that we should really start to really move forward on. And 26, 27 is just gonna hurt, but we're gonna have to try and figure it out and see where we can make it all work.
It can be, I mean.
It can be done.
If these numbers are correct,
Right.
this is adding 2 additional people. It's not gonna hurt much. And, you know, if, like I said, 6 months is best case scenario.
Right.
That puts you in July. It's probably not attainable. Again, I'm not gonna put that pressure on Travis or Michelle or any of them. But if even Council Kitchen's gonna agree in 12 months, it's attainable, well, guess what, guys? That puts
It's
us
a lot.
It's a moment.
That puts us in December, January, where we're half a year
Right.
transition period, and we still want to be good partners with Delta. We still want mutual aid agreements with them. You know, we don't want to just say, well, you know, we're gonna take our ball and go home.
No.
That's not the point in this. It's controlling our costs, and like you said, you know, putting our citizens in the best position for them, so.
Right.
We're not talking 18 months, guys, we're talking 6 to 12. If it's 6, well, you know what, now you're $1 million less than what this year is. If it's 12, you're $500,000. Michelle's only estimated at $150,000. So we're coming in really conservative with this budget, and you're still adding 2 personnel with wage increases, benefit increases, $200,000
And the safety aspect.
increase.
The safety aspect for Travis and his
Exactly,
personnel.
exactly. And the morale. So this isn't something that we've come into. I mean, the first thing before I ever spoke about this, Chief Larry, do you and your staff want this? Is this something that you guys would like to do? Travis, I don't think I'm overstepping. Yes, absolutely. This is what we want.
And they said, but we need to do it right.
We need,
Yeah,
exactly.
yeah,
And I'm not looking to put pressure on him. I just want us to be able to unleash him and give him the opportunity to do his job. You know, I'm not going to say, well, geez, Travis, it's been 15 months, what's going on? That's not the point. It's making a decision from this collective group that we need to move forward. And the longer you wait, the longer you push that transition off. If we come back in 6 months, or we meet again in 9 months and say, well, yeah, let's do this. Well, guess now what? You're into 28, 29.
and your costs keep going up, so. Robin, do you have anything to add? Robin Dennis?
Do you guys understand the numbers? If you look at that very first page with the fire truck, and look at that top 2 paragraphs, just from Benton's perspective. So
It is a big deal
Yeah.
financially from Benton.
I have. It is.
It's a very big deal.
So,
And it's going to be,
a lot.
yeah,
so
because of the change.
this year, we're paying 270, we'll call it 4, right? And for fire and rescue, and then 96K is the change for Delta. So that comes to about 370. And then if we were paying what we should be paying based on the call volume, right? If the formula was different, we would have been paying 438 of change, plus the 96K for Delta. So we'd be at 534.35, right? The difference between that is that 164 number that she's got in there. The change for the upcoming year, should we go in this direction, regardless of whether we go in the direction or not, if we're going to sign an agreement for us to redo the split, right, differently, as we talked about this evening, and it seems like we are in agreement at the moment for that. That 438 and some change is going to go to that 500, we'll call it 501. So that's going to be the first change. You're going to have that regardless of whether or not we do this approach. And that approach, it calls for the 2.25 staff members. It has all that stuff built in. So there is no extra on top of that. And if we're right, and Delta Ambulance is at least the 151 or 2, okay, right? You're at 652. That's going to be the hard number to sell, right? It's going to be important that we can demonstrate the readiness, right? You might have Travis, you might come to the town meeting, you might come to the public hearing, right? And we talk about the program. There's no doubt about it. I probably hear it more than most people because of where my house sits, but the volume has gone up. I mean, I've said, what in the world is going on, right? You're always going by my house. And we've got an older community. When we did the economic development and we did the stats for the age group in the town, based on a 10-year lookout, right? We're not bringing in a lot of young families. You know, we've got an aging population, just as Fairfield does. And so what does that mean? That means we need more of these types of services. And we're also not going to be able to entice business to come in if we don't have the right support services. So that Neck Road project that we've talked about, right? It's successful only if we're able to bring and entice business in, right? Otherwise, why do it? And so I think if you look at it from that perspective, and we really, there's a lot of numbers here, and it can be very scary, that discussion for this upcoming year is going to be, it's just going to be a discussion. We've got some help with some of the things we've already put in place. You know, we talked about putting more of the outright money in the capital reserve fund. We might try to think about that as part of the budget planning process. I think if you go over 12 months, now you've really got a problem, because now you've got a whole other year of Delta Ambulance, based on the way the contracts read. They're not.
That's my only concern, honestly. I agree with going forward with it on everything. It's the fear that we are going to be paying double, right?
And you are going to be this upcoming year. And when I say double, you're not really. You're going to pay what's budgeted in order to properly staff. It's going to look like that if we don't explain it well.
It's going to look double because we haven't been billing you appropriately for the last 4 years.
Exactly.
So, and we're not asking to recoup any of those costs. You didn't have a decision, we didn't have an agreement in place.
We'd love it if
But-
we did.
I know.
But again, you know, even when I look at our budget this year, we added 3 additional personnel. Fairfield's eating that entire cost, so by changing the agreement to the 22.8% of the actual usage, your costs are going to go up extraordinarily, double for 26, 27 anyway. And if we continue to push this off for another 6 months, now you're into 27, 28.
Right.
Where if we decide today that this is in the best interest of both towns, let's try to move forward. 12 months is next January. We're 6 months, worst case scenario, into paying both, not a year. And then in 27, 28, it's a complete write-off. We're not paying that extra fee, and we know what the billables are going to be, so there is a revenue stream to offset some of those costs.
So if you look at what we paid for the ambulance this year, and we look at the jump, right? That's over $50,000 jump, right? So if we just say that's gonna happen again, we're at 200,000, right? There gets to be a point that the switch is gonna be really hard,
Right.
right? And so I wouldn't want to see us go over 12 months, just personally as a resident.
Does 12 months look,
You're talking the fiscal
Realistic.
year.
Yeah.
The fiscal year of the 12 months.
the fiscal year, right, the fiscal year of the 12
Yeah.
months?
Yeah.
Where we switch in?
So I'll be 100% honest with you. It's going to be very challenging.
Yeah.
Only for the unknowns, right?
Right.
I have no idea if we can fill 2 positions. You know, I might fill it in 2 weeks, or it might take 6 months to fill those 2 positions. I just, that's the unknown part, right? Because I just do not know that. There is some licensure stuff that I digging into this after our last council meeting, that I've learned. The process of getting a transport license, Delta actually has to sign off saying that they were going to relinquish the primary response area. And if they don't, by the sounds of it, we have to have another third-party audit done explaining that this is a better service than what we're currently getting. So
If we
there's
had-
some other stuff.
If we had a detailed plan of action and milestones laying that out, that would be the information, because
It would, but the state is gonna require a third party.
We can't do it ourselves.
It's in their state laws,
Right, but we already have the recommendation from the audit.
and it has to be within a year. So, trust me,
We'll ask for a waiver. if we have to.
I keep reading, and I'm like, oh yeah, we have an audit, within 1 year. Okay.
Study that they did, because I don't remember it word for word, and you know it,
Yeah.
you know it
Yeah.
best probably. So, did they put together, even at a high level, a milestone plan of some sort to get at what you're trying to do as well? Right? And if you were gonna go in this direction, they've already said, you gotta have the 2 in, 2 out.
They didn't do a lot of like timeline as far, they made recommendations, they didn't attach like a timeline, like it would take you, X amount of time to do this, to do that. So they didn't spell it out that way, they just kind of spelled out the direction that they thought would be most beneficial to our operations in our community, so.
It does state things like hire 2 additional personnel,
Yeah,
so you
yeah.
reach that OSHA guideline.
Yeah.
Do this, so you have that. Because a lot of the pieces with the, the ambulance transport piece would have to, investigate medical billing, those sort of pieces. So some of the things, I haven't seen Kevin's report, but I think probably a lot of those things, it's either being worked on or we do have in place, which is good. And we would be more than happy to come to any meeting that you need to help explaining that. And one of the things that might be helpful for you to explain is the appropriation that Benton is paying for is based upon Fairfield having 8 full-time personnel that service your community. You currently have 11 employees that service your community. You're just not paying for those other 3 because that was that separate budgetary appropriation that's already being paid for. This is now going to get us to the 13 piece that we need in order to provide all of that. So that's where that comes in. So if you think about, you're gonna go from 8 employees that you're helping to fund to 13 employees to provide this additional level of service, which you need to have anyway, irregardless of whether we do ambulance transport, just to ensure the fact that we can come to your community and put out a fire safely for our staff and for your property owners. So irregardless of all of that, even if we just hired 2 new firefighters, you're gonna end up paying pretty much the same exact thing for that staff as if they were firefighter EMTs. And you gotta keep those costs are based on all of that. So that safety mechanism to meet those OSHA standards, coupled with the other piece of being able to be funded through the possibility of the building for the transport, is the reason why that makes this transport piece sustainable.
And even Dr. Pay admitted that.
Absolutely.
And he said Fairfield Benton is in a unique situation because we're looking at trying to provide the safety for our citizens and having the proper staffing for our fire department. And one of the ways to do that for us would be to transport. And so
And we're
Wants.
unique where we offer a lot of services that other towns currently don't, you know.
So it really
We
is.
have the staff, you know.
And I think that's one of the biggest things we look at, right?
Yeah.
Because we're looking at expanding the fire department to provide the safety for our citizens. And we also want to expand, to help fund that by expanding transport, we're going to provide a better service for our citizens. And in the long run, it'll help cut down our costs. And I think, so you have to look at safety first, but then here's how a way that we can do it.
And-
And the last one, I'm sorry.
No, no.
The last one is, and I think Delta should continue to be a partner.
Absolutely.
But the fact is, when we, a few years ago when it was zero, this is a whole different conversation. When it's, $25, it's a different conversation. When it's 65 or more, it becomes really imperative that we look at this.
Yeah, this is, you hear a lot of stuff on the book face. But we brought this 25 years ago to Fairfield. We asked to start a transport service. At that time, Delta did not charge, and it wasn't financially, as responsible, or, it wasn't as fiscally responsible, I guess, to do it back then in budgetary terms. So this has been talked about for literally at least 25 years, if not longer. And Delta does provide us a good service. They have good staff. It simply boils down to cost and cost management. That's literally what it comes down to. Nobody has ever said that we're doing it because Delta provides a terrible service, because that's not the case at all. It comes down to how can we provide continued good service, high quality service to our community and be financially responsible at the same time. Because essentially right now we're paying 3 times for EMS service. You have your fire department budget, you have your Delta subsidy, and then you pay your insurance. So you're paying 3 times right now. So how can we get that back? And unfortunately, does that hurt Delta? Yeah, it does. And I wish it didn't, but unfortunately it is.
But if it's not us, it's going to be somebody else.
And what we've said along for the last 5 years or so, 4 or 5 years, is what happens if that just goes away. Then what do we do? Because we definitely can't rely on the area towns because they're busy doing their own stuff. But there is a lot to this. This is a huge endeavor. It's not something that is going to happen overnight, honestly. Revenues, I would not expect to see substantial revenues for the first 6 months after we start transporting. And it will probably take a year and a half till you get your full potential, right? Just because of delays in billing, I'm sure you guys are familiar with that type of stuff. So it would probably take a good solid 2 to 3 years before you could actually get some good solid data and numbers on what we're going to be, gathering on a fairly frequent basis.
In your review, Travis, did it say that can we use the same group to come back?
Yeah, it didn't say that. And that was my thought, that, we would reach out to them again and.
It would make the most sense, because they've already done a lot.
They've done a lot of the legwork, yeah.
You would
Yeah.
To use the
bust
same
out
what?
The same group that did the
New
study.
Hampshire group.
Yeah.
They did the other day.
And it may be very simple to just update what they've already done. We'd have to look into
Yeah.
that, but yeah.
And then we would gather, obviously give them all the up-to-date data, call stats and all that stuff, so yeah, I think that would probably be the way to go.
I'd like to hear from Brock. We haven't heard from him all.
Sure. I do think it could be a great idea. One of the things, I'd like to analyze the data that Kevin said. I'm kind of a numbers guy, so it's something I'd like to do with that. And, That's pretty much it.
All right? I didn't want to leave you out.
No, I appreciate it. I guess one thing I will say is, I've worked a long time in public service, mostly doing first responder stuff and law enforcement and stuff like that. So I understand it, and I think it can bring the community together. One from a public image standpoint, cost efficiency, safety aspect, and stuff like that. So I think it really is something that everybody should do their due diligence on, and I think it really could be really positive for both communities.
Okay. So where we go from here, Rob?
Based on, we were looking at the calls for service. How many of those are being transported?
Yeah, well, these are definitely our
Probably,
budget
yeah,
numbers,
it's just a
right?
small percentage.
From
At
the
this
upcoming
point,
year?
yeah.
Okay. Well, we know what our budget numbers are,
Right.
right? And then we need to talk about the other piece, which would be part of the conversation we need to have.
Do we need to bring that to a town vote to go to something different? Or if it's going to be within what we have for a budget, are we good with going forward?
They could vote it down anything in the warrant articles, right? They
Right.
certainly could. Are they going to vote down fire and rescue and safety, public safety? Probably
Probably
not,
not.
right? We can't just, if they did, it was because we didn't do our job explaining why it was important.
Right.
That's the way I feel about
I
it.
think there's enough information that we can present of why this is a smart move at this point in time.
And it's not too early. You know, people don't like to go out in the wintertime, right? But it's not too early to start the education early part of March and just, have a series of conversations, let people come in via some Zoom session. You guys are a lot better equipped than we are, so maybe we have it right here, so that,
And make sure your folks know too, so, these meetings that you had, the one you had in October, this one tonight, these are being recorded.
Yeah.
They are gonna be able to, they live out there in various different places, and we can make sure you have the links to those, so if you wanna share them on your website, so you can send people there, so they can watch these conversations and hear what we have going. And Travis, Chief Leary and I are always available with questions, with answers to questions, or we'll help you find those answers that you need, and we're happy to help with anything you need to explain to anybody. Yeah.
so the budget numbers are gonna be the budget numbers, Robin, right?
Right.
We'll explain that.
So we don't have to have a separate meeting, is what I'm saying. We just go to basically to the town meeting when we present the budget then.
Well, my suggestion, though, would be that we actually have a couple of public hearings, and we really present it to
Try
them,
to get
and
the
get,
information
and try
out.
to actually get it in there.
Right.
So that they can.
We don't want it to be a social media misinformation.
Because I've already seen people from Benton already. 'Cause I look on Facebook, asking questions.
Oh, I'm sure they have.
So,
Yeah. And, absent information, they're gonna come up with their own, people talk, and they're gonna come up with their own story about it, so.
And if you know you have certain questions that you're getting over and over, we have found in the past it's helpful to do a Q&A page
Yep.
that we can post.
Yep.
So if you need help answering those questions, we can always assist with that too, and help you to get that information. The issue is going to be, for both municipalities, is Chief Leary is going to need an answer to this question. And my piece here this evening is to ask you, what is your deadline to make this decision as to what we do?
Oh, mine's right now. Okay, so listen, and I'm going to explain that. We already know that it's going to take Travis time to find personnel, which we won't even post until the budgets are passed. Okay, but if we don't
Post in
plan for it
anticipation of
now, right, we have a budget that we've already put 2 personnel in that's going to go to both towns to be voted on. But this is the budget we're proposing with the additional personnel. The fiscal budget won't start till July 1. Obviously, we're not going to have the money to hire until July 1. We need to buy an ambulance. Okay?
We're not gonna have the money to, well, we could, we have the reserve.
We have the money to buy a second ambulance.
But we're not gonna buy another ambulance that we don't need unless we've decided we're gonna move forward on this, and I don't wanna waste $150,000 that we don't need to. But it could take time, it could take him 3 to 6 months to find an ambulance, but if we say, well, this is definitely the direction we want to go. Travis can cross off a lot of these check marks that we need to cover before the funds are available in July. And if we wait till our town meeting in June to vote on this, we wasted 6 months. Now you are into that 27, 28 period. So I would like us to say, look, this is the direction that we're moving. Give Travis, we already have the intermittent license. We already know we need another audit done. We've got to have approval. There are a lot of moving parts that we can check off those boxes and still not 100% commit to it, but they're already in the works and primarily done when we say, okay, this is the direction we want to go.
With that license, Travis, how long does, in a minute,
We're still in that process.
how long do you think it'll take?
I don't know, to be honest with you.
Okay.
We're still waiting on me and EMS to get back to some of our questions.
Would it be to our advantage if we decide tonight to go with transporting? Would it be to our advantage just to go to a transporting permit?
It's a possibility, yeah. There's just a lot of steps. There's a lot, mutual aid agreements have to be agreed upon. There's a huge piece from Delta that has to be agreed upon, so there's a lot of unknowns, honestly. I really can't tell you how long it would take because it could be dragged out for a lengthy time.
So you could do the one while you're still working on the second one, the full.
Okay.
Right, correct?
Yeah.
Yes.
We're starting the process on the intermittent now.
And still continue to be working on checking all the boxes for the full at the
Right.
same exact time.
Exactly.
How soon would we know if Delta will?
I don't know. I would have to.
Probably right now.
I would have to.
I'm guessing tomorrow.
I would have to come up with a proposal and meet with them, and, and the council would probably have to meet with them and have some discussions.
But remember, regardless of what their decision is, right, we still have to present the budget as it is,
Yeah.
right? So take the transport thing for a minute, set it aside, right? That's the budget to do transport. It just happens to be, right?
Right. It's not going to
if-
change for us.
It's not going to change, right?
It'll be the same budget for us, whether this
Right.
transport.
Right.
Transport does
Right.
make sense.
The only difference would be if we decided, if the towns decided, if we put it in a way that said, here's an article that says whether or not we do a transport service, right? We might not hire 2.25 people, right? It might be a little lower. But he's still got to address the safety concerns, right? And
Right.
it would be very unfortunate because they couldn't go into a building because they didn't have 2 other people
Right.
present, and it was too dangerous to go in, and there was somebody in there, right? So, the numbers are the numbers.
Right. I agree with what Sean said, and what Travis has said. Delta has not done a bad job.
No.
It really comes down to, can we do something a little bit better for our residents? And having an ambulance, someone that can transport our residents faster instead of waiting for someone that's a little bit farther away is a definite benefit. I mean, your people have already been on scene, have already done everything, and if you just have to sit and wait for an ambulance, if we take that piece out and we can provide quicker service for people, that is
It's just
a huge
financially,
benefit.
that's the huge part. I would love to have 8 firefighters on every shift and still use Delta to transport, because that would mean we would have 8 people, ready to go 365 days a year, but that's not financially, attainable. It just doesn't make any sense, but, so, yeah, that's the big thing.
So next steps then are communication.
We need to give Travis some direction, okay? We're not gonna, Benton has to go do their part. I mean, we're all both getting into our budget period, and we have many, many different departments that we're gonna have to divulge in. This group needs to decide, do we need the 2 additional personnel? Is that what we're gonna present? I have my own opinion, it's yes. And how do you offset that cost? The only way to do it is to get moving for the ambulance service so you can generate some revenue. Again, it's not gonna be a revenue for the department, but it's gonna offset the personnel and the equipment. And other than that, you have an uncontrollable cost. We have an estimate of what next year's costs are gonna be for a separate line item, both towns, right? This is not our fire department budget. This is a separate line item. They can tell us whatever we want. They can fold tomorrow, what do? What do we do? We're gonna scramble and we have to hurry and get this
Proactive or
done.
reactive?
Exactly.
That's what we talked about in our last meeting.
And it's essentially what we're doing with our budget now, right? We take, the code enforcement officer, anything they bring in, right,
Right.
helps to go offset their costs, whatever that cost is, right? And other positions are the same way. So, some years, there's a lot of permits, some years there's not so much, right? And we also, take monies from, registrations to offset things, right? So we don't have to raise it from taxes. It's the same thing. It's just, you have to be a little more clever, right? Because it's a bigger number.
We're gonna have to be real
We've
clever.
got, yeah. We've got the second TIF, right, that we've got to look at and dust off. We would owe the commissioner some type of report that specifies what we're going to do. So I need to work in tangent with them to make sure we can demonstrate why we're going to use it for certain things. It's all doable. It's just going to be a slightly more complicated process for budget this year, only because we have the second TIF and we have to think about these other things. But we're going to have to do this, guys, whether or not we, right, whether or not we do transport.
Right.
If it were me, we got to keep people safe and we got to be able to support the citizens, and that's our job, really. We're health and safety officers ourselves at the board, right? It's
I
our
agree with
job to
that.
protect the public. That's why we sand the roads, that's why we plow, that's why we do a lot of things.
And we're here for the safety of our people, but also to be sentinels for the budget process as well.
Absolutely, absolutely.
We have to
And,
be fiscally responsible.
Absolutely. It's all coming out of our, one way or the other, because, the reality is, we live in the town, we pay taxes too, and we need to be responsible. And I think we've done a good job holding the line over the last, I don't know how many years, budget-wise. It's
So-
hard, because it's a big number.
Yeah, can we say that we're pretty much in agreement on the interlocal agreement and the percentages that both towns are going to pay? Because that's really important for both budgets, right? Can we say we've accomplished that for the most part tonight? We incorporate the language we've agreed to. We'll get back, sign that agreement. That's the first step. That's the first part on what's going to change the budget.
Yep.
Second part is that this group collectively, we would like to see that 2 additional personnel in this year's budget. We've already set Travis in process with that intermittent license, so I'd like to say, Travis, you're looking for a second ambulance, see what it's gonna cost. See if it's feasible to find 2 more personnel.
Get the feelers out.
Yeah, and let's get that new audit done so that,
We don't know if we have to do that.
okay, but if we do, let's cross off some of these boxes, not necessarily get them done,
At least do the research.
but let's have it ready to go, so when the budgets come in, Benton has the opportunity to go sell it to their residents, and it comes back, yes, that you can hit the ground running on July 1, when we've determined what the budget's going to
What
be.
we can do is, with that feasibility study, just as we did there, the select board has, we can use the first TIF to help offset whatever we've got to have for expenses for that. So it's, and we can do that without taking it to the legislative body, because we have the authority to
They've
do
already
that.
approved that when they approved your
Yeah.
TIF document.
Yeah, so, Travis, if you found, right, that we had to do another audit.
Sure.
It's probably not gonna be as expensive as the first one, but as long as we get the same party.
Sure, right. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, because we used ARPA money to pay for the first one.
Yeah,
Both
we
communities
did, we did. You know, there's ways to do that without getting to the town meeting, right? At least on our side. We had to move in that direction. It's a way of moving you forward.
Right.
If that's what's needed.
Yep.
And it's not a raise from taxes scenario, so
Right.
it would be perceived better by the citizens on our side.
Can you use your TIF to offset any of your public safety expenses, other than, like, just that?
We can for those, anytime we bring in a professional person.
So an incidental
Yes, yeah,
engineer, like,
yeah.
just that, not the service itself?
I need to understand more about the second
So
TIF.
we'll
Yes,
chat.
yes. There is a couple of provisions that the commissioner put in the letter that needs to be understood clearly by the board. It's the first time we're going to be working with it.
Oh,
And
more than happy to help.
absolutely,
More than happy.
and I'll share them with you and we can talk about it.
And
Because
I can help you.
honestly, you know, some of the projects and then, you know, we just happened to fall. It was good that it didn't necessarily go forward the first time because we fell within that new legislation for the public safety components. So we were able to add into that tip. So that's going to help some too.
So there's if you don't know, with TIFs, right, so anything you use TIF money for usually has to lend itself towards economic development. So as you mentioned before, new businesses in your community, they expect that fire service. They need that fire service, and that's why usually TIF districts allow you to help offset your costs for that service, for those things, with that being in there.
And
So,
that's
yeah.
the way we wrote the article.
Yeah, so, and I can help you with what the commissioner said. We've done a couple of things.
Okay. So we just, going to be a different budget process, a little more.
Oh, yeah,
A
definitely.
little more in-depth. Brock, I can't tell whether you look happy or not.
I am tired. I was up early.
But it won't be a surprise, because every quarter, we're gonna be meeting, whoever's on that committee, and be discussing what's coming up.
And then we'll go back to the.
Does the town council actually have to approve you putting the license in?
Good question.
Maybe we should find that out, because I think that might be,
I don't think so, because I apply for the service renewal licenses.
and we don't have to go
we
to
don't have
council
to
for
go to
that.
approval for that. So the application process, no. But the audit, you know, if we do have to do that audit,
Right.
and there may be some other, and as far as so there will have to be, part of the licensing process is you do have to have updated new mutual aid agreements with Waterville, with Winslow, with Clinton, with Delta. So those would need to be approved, that type of stuff. So there would be some stuff that would need to be approved and in place before the application is sent in or along with the application.
So, it's a workshop, so none of you can make any motions or votes this evening anyway. But I just want to sum up that my understanding is at this point in time, from both communities, Travis is to start working on, well, he's already working on the intermittent transport license, but he's to also start working on what everything would entail to do the full transport license. So that by fiscal year 27-28, that is what we are doing, is transport. Is that my understanding?
What my understanding is.
That's everybody's understanding?
That would be
Yes.
the goal, right? So that
Right.
gives you a little more than 12 months. That would be what,
Right.
you know,
But that's that's really the end run goal that we need, because like he has said, it requires work. And the more we go back and forth, is the less time we spend doing that work. So he needs to have that time to get going on that work. So that is the work that we are going to start getting on and start pursuing.
And in all honesty, I think and my hope is that may also help the region prepare for this change to take place as well.
Right.
That gives them a year plus to plan for this as well, if this was to go forward and happen. You know what I mean? It's not by the way, you know,
There are
in 2
over
months, we're gonna start doing this.
a dozen municipalities that
So
are
it's gonna
waiting on
affect
this
a lot of
decision.
people, yeah.
Yeah,
Can
It's
you
gonna be
work
like
on
a
those
chain
mutual
reaction.
aid agreements now?
Yeah.
Oh, absolutely.
Even,
Yeah.
even
Yeah,
if we
because I actually
don't
have to
put
have.
them in place?
I actually have to have those in place
Okay.
with the application,
So they-
so that's something we're gonna do before.
Okay.
They have to be done before, like, these pieces that are required with the application have to be in hand.
Yeah.
When it goes, so even for the intermittent.
So they can take a place, so they can take effect when we do get a transport license, so. yeah. And a lot of, like I said, we have mutual aid agreements. We just, like you said in previous meetings, we've never geared them towards EMS related. They're more fire related mutual aid agreements, so. So there's a lot of steps. It's a very big undertaking, and we're gonna be busy. We're gonna be busier than we ever have been, so. Yeah.
I just hope that Delta says, okay, you're going to leave us, we're done.
So one
They
of,
won't do that, will they?
so one of the things that we have open communications with Delta, and anytime the Fairfield Town Council has done anything regarding any kind of change in our status, we have made sure that they are aware. So what will happen tomorrow is, I'm sure he's aware, but we will have,
He's
I will have a
probably already
conversation with Chris
aware.
tomorrow,
Yeah.
so that he is definitely aware.
He's watching
We've
right
never
now.
done anything, we
probably dialed
don't
in.
try to keep it secret, it's very much open communication. And after, quite frankly, your last meeting that you had jointly, and he was here, and he was seeing the budget numbers, he also agrees, believe it or not, that he understands why this financial piece, because we are in a unique situation in which we're not like a lot of other municipalities where we would have to invest $1 million just to think about starting. We already have full-time staff. We're not just volunteer firefighters. So it's a bigger difference. But Delta will be aware tomorrow, if they're not already.
Okay.
And we'll go from there.
Thank you.
All right. Thank you, everybody.
And then as soon as I'll get these language changes done, get that out to everybody.
Put it in Word, the track changes, just
Yes.
in case we have to make any edits, then it's
Yeah,
easier.
and then that way it's easier.
Yeah.
And then what we should do is I'll put a date in there by like one of our council meetings that I know, so to give you guys an opportunity to meet, review us, if there's any changes, get that back to us. So like maybe we plan by the end of February, we know we have this document completely done and wrapped up, if not sooner.
And do the councils have to form the joint committee?
They
before
do,
we
so I'm gonna have to write all that stuff up too for that joint committee.
We don't need like a public hearing to inform the residents, Michelle, just in case we do go transport or keep them informed.
It's not anything that's required, but I would strongly suggest that you have a follow-up conversation
Yeah.
at next week's council meeting regarding all of this.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And there is, in the licensing process, there is actually a 30-day public comment period that has to be
Yes, there
advertised
has to.
in the newspaper, so that's part of the process.
Yeah, this doesn't take place in a vacuum by any
Okay.
means. It's a very public process. Yeah. I
Just in
think.
just in case we get any questions.
Right, yeah, no.
It's a long process.
Oh, yeah, I understand.
I'll send out what I have once I clear. I can leave the numbers as estimated. I just ask, keep in mind that, in sake of time, I'll get it out without necessarily, as we say, changing puppy to little dog or stuff like that. But I think the meat will be there, the foundation will be there.
Can you send that to Travis and Michelle first, just so they, like Q&A, some of the things that you have in that document that are already in place,
That you can
just
check
so
off.
they can check them off and you can pull those pieces out for reassurance, not just for you, but for everybody else.
Well, and it just might be safer that you get it to us anyway, or at least me, for distribution, so that it's not you direct emailing
I'll send it to
councils
you.
from both communities.
Or you want, like,
Just the safety.
when Kevin gives it to you, just have the date, says this has been done already, and put a date on it.
I haven't seen what he has, but we
Okay.
can try to make that.
It's just
clear.
just for Kevin's records.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah, it's going to even take me time to read through a
Okay.
34-page
All right.
document. Good
Yeah.
job.
My numbers may be way off too. I just estimated stuff that was here, so
You're more than
she might be
likely
able to
in the
look at it.
ballpark.
What's that?
Probably in the
I bet he
ballpark.
is.
I hope so.
Okay,
All right.
thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
I think this was
Good luck.
very productive. I appreciate your time and input. and
Yeah.
Hopefully, we can do what's in the best interest of not only both towns, but our citizens.
It's nice
And
doing
and our
business.
community. So, all right.
All right,
Do we need a motion to adjourn?
Make a motion to adjourn.
and I'll second.
Have a great night, everybody.
I am one of them.